kindness, Green Day, and a philosopher gets burned, all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is February 17th, 2022. It is the 48th day of the year. It's the 7th Thursday in the 8th week and the 59th day of winter. You got 31 days left until spring. If today's your birthday, your birthstone's still an amethyst. I gotta find something to switch that up. That's getting kind of monotonous. You're also an Aquarius. Again, gotta switch that up. Today is Random Act of Kindness Day. Random Act of Kindness Day seeks to encourage kindness within society. This day aims to inspire people to be generous and kind by performing gracious acts. Some ideas include donating to charity, recycling, and simply being considerate to friends and neighbors. Okay, so be a decent human being is what this day's all about. Random Act of Kindness Day was established in 2004 in New Zealand. It was first observed in 2008 by the Victoria Foundation and is now observed annually on February 17th. That's what the website says. All right, let's see what else February 17th has given us. 1600. Yeah, we're going way back. On his way to be burned at the stake for heresy in Rome, the philosopher Giordano Bruno has a wooden vice put on his tongue to stop him from speaking. No more heresy. 1621, Miles Standish is appointed as the first military commander of the English Plymouth colony in North America. This is the guy who was in charge of all the pilgrims, apparently, or at least defending them, which back in those days, that meant he was also the judge, jury, and in some cases executionist of a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot, not like it was a booming metropolis there at Plymouth back in 1621, but he was in charge of everything. 1913, the Armory Show opens in New York City, displaying works from artists who will become some of the most influential painters of the early 20th century. This was an impressive art show, basically. The reason it was called the Armory Shows, it was held in National Guard armories. The first one was at New York City's 69th Regiment Armory on Lexington Avenue between 25th and 26th Street. 1944, World War II, Operation Hailstone begins. The U.S. naval, air, surface, and submarines attack Truk Lagoon, Japan's main base in the Central Pacific. This attack was almost a complete surprise. Japan didn't even know they were there till they were being attacked, pretty much. This whole island and the atoll that's there's actually a few islands here, but it was a main base for Japan for supplying its troops throughout the Pacific. Had tons and tons of fuel and supplies on the docks and in ships when the Americans attacked. This did not go good for Japan. This was a devastating defeat. How bad, you ask? Well, this is the scorecard. The United States had a little damage to an aircraft carrier and slight damage to a battleship. 25 aircraft were destroyed and 40 men were killed. On the Japanese side, they lost 2 cruisers, completely sunk. 4 destroyers were completely sunk. 3 auxiliary cruisers sunk, and 6 other auxiliary ships were sunk. 1 aircraft ferry was sunk, 2 submarines were sunk, and 3 other small warships were sunk. They lost 32 cargo ships, 250 aircraft, and 4,500 men killed. Like I said, this was a major loss to Japan. To this day, this lagoon is known as the largest ship graveyard on the planet. 1959, the Vanguard project. Vanguard 2, the first weather satellite, is launched to measure cloud cover distribution. I don't know what that means, but sounds really serious. 1964, in Westbury v. Sanders, the Supreme Court of the United States rules that congressional districts have to be approximately equal in population. This plays into the whole gerrymandering thing and trying to cut down on how extreme the gerrymandering gets. Like we discussed a couple days ago, gerrymandering is when you basically set up a political map to give your party an advantage. And the reason it's called gerrymandering is because of a governor whose last name was Jerry, and when he did his map, it looked like a salamander. Push them together, gerrymandering. And it still goes on to this day. There's court battles over it all the time. There's actually a couple of them been struck down just recently that were so extremely tilted that their state's Supreme Court or whatever said, no, this is outrageous. Try again. 1969, American Aquanaut Barry L. Cannon dies from carbon dioxide poisoning while attempting to repair a leak in Sea-Lab 3, an underwater habitat. They scrapped the whole Sea-Lab project after this. And if you don't know what an Aquanaut is, I had to look it up because I thought it was an interesting word. I'd seen it before, didn't know what it meant. Anyone that stays underwater for more than 24 hours breathing breathing some kind of gas makes them an aquanaut. But apparently if you're in a submarine, you're breathing oxygen, so that doesn't count, I guess. I don't understand the whole thing. It went back and forth. I guess if you were a submarine guy, you're a submariner, but if you function underwater as some sort of scientist, they call you Aquanaut. 1972, total sales of Volkswagen Beetles exceed those of the Ford Model T. Yes, the Model T was the first mass-produced car, and they built a bunch of them. And in 1972, the Volkswagen Beetle beat them. 1974, Robert K. Preston, a disgruntled U.S. Army private, buzzes the White House in a stolen helicopter. 1991, Ryan International Airlines Flight 590 crashes during takeoff from Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, killing both pilots, the aircraft's only occupants. It's horrible. A plane went down, a couple guys died, but that's almost good news. I had a friend die in a car accident years ago. He's an old military friend. And, it's horrible that he went, but there was good news there. He had just dropped off his 3 kids and 4 cousins to their grandparents' house, like 5 minutes earlier. I don't know, I'm always one of those people that look for the positive in really bad situations. There's no good situation in this one. 1992, Jeffrey Dahmer is sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms and is never eligible for parole by the Wisconsin court. He was convicted of some pretty gross stuff on 15 people. He died in prison. This is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. So he always told people he was Satan. He thought he was Satan. The guy that killed him was also insane like that, but he thought he was Jesus. It's like the ultimate battle of good and evil in a prison in Wisconsin. Movies released on February 17th, 1989. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. This was a very entertaining movie back in the day. They tried to redo it, and I realized the guy that played Keanu Reeves' co-star, that man didn't age well at all. The whole gist of this story is George Carlin plays a man from the future who comes back in a time machine to talk to Bill and Ted because they're going to be world leaders and they're about to flunk their history class and screw everything up. So he basically takes his time machine that looks like a phone booth and takes them all over the, decades and all of these historical times so they could learn and pass their history class. Yeah, I know, it sounds weird, but if you see the movie, you're all, this is kind of funny, it's kind of stupid, and it's kind of neat. Don't go out of your way to see it if you've never seen this before, but if it's on a late night cable or nothing else to watch on Netflix, it's worth looking at. Born on February 17th, 1991, Ed Sheeran. He's a singer-songwriter. He first gained attention from his hit song, The A-Team, in 2011. Yeah, I don't get into his music, but he's very popular. He's done things with Taylor Swift. He was just on this movie that I really liked called Yesterday. If you've never seen Yesterday, you got to watch that movie. It's about this dude that gets hit by a bus, goes into a coma. When he wakes up, it's like the world that he wakes up in had never heard of the Beatles. But he remembers the Beatles. He knows all their songs because he's a musician, and he starts singing them for people, and he becomes a worldwide sensation, and Ed Sheeran becomes his friend. It's a really, really interesting movie. But yeah, it's Ed Sheeran's birthday today. Died on February 17th, 2021, Rush Limbaugh, American talk show host and author. He wasn't my type of politics or my type of person. I always really had a problem with the guy. He was always filled with conspiracies. That Deepwater Horizon oil tanker that blew up in the Gulf of Mexico, he said that was like one of these, what do they call it, those false flags or this fake thing, so they could justify President Obama's Deepwater drilling moratorium, and he had all kinds of things. And then one time he was always harping about law and order and the police and stop this and criminals, gotta get them off the streets, and he was one of these type of dudes. The whole time he was addicted to pills and actually was arrested for it. He was doing that doctor shopping thing where you go to a doctor, tell him you got back pain, he gives you Vicodin. Well, then you go to another doctor, tell him you've got back pain, he gives you Oxycontin, and the thing goes on and on. He also kind of said Michael J. Fox was faking his Parkinson's disease, or at least making it seem worse than it was, so they could get more funding for stem cell research. It's just one conspiracy after another, this guy. But anyway, don't want to talk bad about the dead, but he passed away last year on this day. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now, before you go, maybe you should watch some of these old videos we have. Have a great day, everyone. Be nice to each other.